First contact with the forgotten. The deep space research vessel Horizon drifted silently through the Carina Nebula, its sensors probing the colorful gases for signs of unusual phenomena. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck, her dark eyes reflecting the swirling purples and blues of the nebula. 20 years of space exploration had taught her to expect the unexpected, but nothing could have prepared her for what they were about to encounter. "Doctor, we're picking up something strange," Lieutenant James Rodriguez called from his station. "It's like nothing I've ever seen before. Some kind of energy signature, but it's organized, almost like it's trying to communicate." Sarah moved quickly to the sensor station, her practiced eyes scanning the readings. The energy patterns were indeed unlike anything in their database. Complex, rhythmic, and definitely artificial. "Send out a broad-spectrum greeting on all frequencies. Let's see if whatever's out there wants to talk." The response came almost immediately, a burst of pure energy that coalesced into a shimmering form on their bridge. The security team raised their weapons, but Sarah held up her hand. The beam before them was beautiful, a graceful arrangement of light and energy that pulsed with subtle colors. "We are the Lumini." The beam communicated directly into their minds, its thoughts carrying an overwhelming sense of exhaustion and desperation. "We seek sanctuary." Sarah stepped forward, her scientific curiosity warring with caution. "I'm Dr. Sarah Chen of the Earth vessel Horizon. Why do you need sanctuary?" The Lumini's form flickered, its colors darkening with what Sarah interpreted as distress. "We are being hunted. The Krath Empire considers us an aberration. They believe that any species that cannot contribute to military might deserve extinction. We were once many, spread across thousands of systems. Now we are few, fleeing from shadow to shadow." The security team lowered their weapons as the beam's words sank in. Even the most hardened among them could sense the truth and pain in the Lumini's communication. "We have approached 17 advanced civilizations," the Lumini continued. "All refused us aid, fearing the Krath's retribution. We detected your vessel's unique energy signature, different from any we had encountered. We hoped you might be different." Sarah turned to Captain Michael Torres, who had been silently observing the exchange. The captain's weathered face was thoughtful, his years of experience evident in his measured response. "We need to contact Earth Command," Torres said quietly. "This is beyond our authority." But he added, looking directly at the Lumini, "You can stay with us until we receive instructions. We won't abandon you to drift in space." The Lumini's form brightened slightly, hope tinging their energy field with gold. "The Krath called us weak because we chose to study the fundamental forces of the universe rather than build weapons. They could not understand that knowledge itself is a form of power." Over the next few days, as they waited for a response from Earth Command, the crew of the Horizon learned more about their unusual guests. The Lumini were a species that had evolved beyond physical form, existing as pure energy beings. Their civilization had focused on understanding the deepest mysteries of the universe: dark energy, quantum mechanics, the very fabric of space-time. "Your species reminds us of ourselves. Long ago," the Lumini told Sarah during one of their many conversations, "you seek knowledge for its own sake. You look at the unknown with wonder rather than fear." Sarah spent hours with the Lumini, learning about their discoveries. Their understanding of energy manipulation was centuries beyond Earth's most advanced theories. "Why didn't you use this knowledge to defend yourselves?" she asked. "We could have," the Lumini admitted. "But to do so would have meant becoming what we feared. There must be another way. A path that doesn't require us to abandon our principles to survive." The response from Earth Command arrived a week later. Captain Torres gathered the senior staff and the Lumini representative in the conference room. Sarah held her breath as he opened the transmission. "Earth Command has considered the Lumini's request for sanctuary," Torres read aloud. "Despite the potential diplomatic and military risks, we cannot in good conscience turn away a peaceful species seeking protection from genocide. The Lumini are granted provisional asylum in Earth-controlled space. The Lumini's form erupted in a display of joy, their energy field spreading across the conference room in waves of brilliant color. But Torres raised his hand, continuing to read. "We must warn you. This decision will have consequences. The Krath Empire has significant influence in this sector of space. By granting you sanctuary, we risk their displeasure and possible retaliation. Nevertheless, humanity has faced threats before. We did not achieve the stars by abandoning our principles at the first sign of danger." Sarah felt pride swell in her chest. This was why she had joined the Earth Space Initiative, not just to explore, but to make a difference in the universe. The Lumini's form coalesced again, somehow managing to convey deep respect and gratitude without words. "Your species is young," they communicated. "Many would call you foolish for standing against the Krath. But we see something else, something that the older races have forgotten. You understand that true strength lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the courage to protect." As the Horizon altered course to escort the Lumini to Earth, Sarah stood again at the observation deck. The nebula's colors seemed brighter somehow, as if reflecting the hope they had kindled. Humanity had made its choice. They would stand with the forgotten, the displaced, the peaceful. Whatever consequences came, they would face them together. The Lumini joined her at the window, their energy form casting subtle patterns across the reinforced glass. "We have wandered the stars for so long," they communicated. "We had begun to believe that there was no place left for those who choose peace over power. Perhaps we were looking in the wrong places. Sometimes the youngest species remember what the oldest have forgotten." Sarah smiled, watching the stars streak by as they headed toward Earth. She knew there would be challenges ahead. The Krath would not be pleased, and humanity's decision would ripple through galactic politics. But in that moment, she was certain they had made the right choice. Sometimes the measure of a civilization wasn't in its military might or technological advancement, but in its capacity for compassion. The Horizon continued its journey through the stars, carrying with it not just the hopes of the Lumini, but a testament to humanity's determination to forge its own path in the galaxy. They had chosen to protect rather than abandon, to stand firm rather than bow to pressure. And in doing so, they had taken their first steps toward changing the very nature of galactic society. The price of compassion. The Galactic Council chamber on Centauri Prime loomed before Ambassador Elena Santos, its crystalline spires reaching impossibly high into the purple alien sky. 6 months had passed since humanity had granted sanctuary to the Lumini, and now they would face the consequences of that decision. Elena straightened her diplomatic uniform and entered the chamber, her steps echoing across the polished floor. Representatives from 200 spacefaring civilizations filled the tiered seats, their varied forms a testament to the diversity of life in the galaxy. But today, all their eyes, or sensing organs, were focused on her with clear disapproval. High Counselor Vex of the Krath Empire stood at the central podium, his scaled armor gleaming under the chamber's lights. The human delegation will explain their violation of Galactic Protocol Section 847, harboring of designated unstable elements. Elena approached the speaker's platform, her voice steady despite the hostility radiating from the assembly. Earth recognizes no such designation for the Lumini. They are refugees seeking protection from genocide, nothing more. A rumble of disagreement swept through the chamber. Vex's yellow eyes narrowed. The Lumini were deemed unfit for participation in galactic society due to their refusal to maintain adequate defensive capabilities. Their continued existence poses a threat to galactic stability. A threat? Elena's voice carried clearly through the chamber. The only threat they pose is to the idea that military might is the sole measure of a civilization's worth. They have survived for millennia as peaceful energy beings, advancing our understanding of the universe. Understanding. Vex spat the word. What use is understanding when the galaxy teeters on the brink of chaos? Every species must contribute to the common defense. The Lumini's pacifism makes them parasites, consuming resources while offering nothing in return. Elena pulled up a holographic display, showing the latest data from Earth's collaboration with the Lumini. In the 6 months since granting them sanctuary, the Lumini have shared insights that have revolutionized our understanding of dark energy manipulation. Their knowledge could solve the energy crisis facing dozens of worlds. Knowledge means nothing without the strength to protect it. A representative from the militant hegemony called out. The Krath Empire has proposed sanctions against Earth for this violation. Who would stand with a primitive species that defies galactic consensus? Elena watched as, one by one, representatives stood to support the sanctions. Trade restrictions, technology embargoes, diplomatic isolation. The punishments piled up. Few species were willing to risk the Krath Empire's displeasure by standing with Earth. Before you vote, Elena said, her voice cutting through the chamber, consider this. Today you may agree with the Krath's definition of worthiness. But what happens when that definition changes? When your species is deemed too weak, too peaceful, too different? Will anyone stand for you then? Her words caused a slight stir, but the outcome was inevitable. The sanctions passed with an overwhelming majority. Elena stood straight-backed as the verdict was read, refusing to show weakness. Back on Earth, the effects of the sanctions were immediate. The global economy struggled as interstellar trade ground to a halt. Advanced technology became scarce as former allies withdrew their support. Some called for the Lumini to be expelled, blaming them for Earth's isolation. But in research facilities across the planet, something remarkable was happening. The Lumini worked tirelessly with human scientists, sharing their deep understanding of the universe. Dr. Sarah Chen, now heading the Lumini Integration Project, watched in amazement as their theories revolutionized physics, energy production, and even medicine. Your species continues to surprise us, the Lumini researcher known as Aurora communicated during one late-night session. Despite the hardships, you have not wavered in your protection. Sarah adjusted the containment field housing Aurora's energy form. Some think we're fools for choosing this path, but I've seen what we can achieve together. The Krath may have the biggest guns, but they don't have a monopoly on progress. In the presidential situation room, leaders debated their next moves. The holographic displays showed the increasing Krath military presence near Earth's colonies. President Carmen Rodriguez listened to her advisors argue about appeasement versus resistance. The sanctions are crippling us, Defense Secretary Williams argued. We can't maintain our military readiness without access to advanced technology. The Krath know this. They're waiting for us to weaken. Then we find another way, Rodriguez replied firmly. The Lumini chose peace not because they were weak, but because they saw a better path. Maybe it's time we learned from their example. She turned to Dr. Chen, who had been summoned to the meeting. Your team's reports on Lumini energy manipulation. Could their principles be adapted for defensive purposes? Sarah's eyes lit up. The Lumini don't believe in weapons, but their understanding of energy fields could revolutionize our shield technology. We've already made breakthroughs in containment and deflection. Then that's our path forward, Rodriguez declared. We won't match the Krath ship for ship or weapon for weapon. We'll develop defenses they can't overcome. Let them learn that there's more than one kind of strength. As the meeting concluded, Sarah hurried back to her lab. The Lumini's soft glow illuminated the room as they continued their work, undaunted by the galaxy's rejection. Humanity had chosen to stand with them, to believe that knowledge and compassion were worth fighting for. Now they would prove that this choice made them stronger, not weaker. The sanctions might isolate Earth from the galactic community, but they could not isolate the human spirit. In laboratories and workshops across the planet, humans and Lumini worked together, combining their unique perspectives to forge something new. The Krath Empire had intended the sanctions to force humanity into line. Instead, they had only strengthened humanity's resolve to forge their own path among the stars. Knowledge is power. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the control room of Project Aegis, watching as streams of data flowed across the holographic displays. A year had passed since the sanctions began, and humanity had refused to break. Instead, they had adapted, evolved, and with the help of the Lumini, they had begun to transform their understanding of defensive technology. Energy containment field at maximum stability, Aurora announced, their luminescent form pulsing with concentration. The Lumini scientist had become one of their most valuable collaborators, their deep understanding of energy manipulation proving invaluable to their work. Before them, a test chamber housed their latest breakthrough, a revolutionary shield system that didn't just block incoming energy, but absorbed and redirected it. The principles came from studying how the Lumini themselves existed as pure energy beings, applying their natural abilities to technological applications. "Begin the weapons test," Sarah ordered. A battery of conventional energy weapons opened fire on the protected target. The shield flickered to life, but instead of the expected explosion of deflected energy, the blasts seemed to disappear into the barrier, leaving the target untouched. Energy absorption at 98% efficiency, Lieutenant Rodriguez reported from his station. The shield is actually growing stronger with each hit. It's working exactly as the Lumini theorized. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. This was what the Krath Empire had failed to understand. The Lumini's pacifism wasn't a weakness. It had led them to explore aspects of the universe that warfare-focused civilizations had never considered. Their knowledge, combined with human ingenuity, was proving more powerful than any conventional weapon. In orbit above Earth, the first ships equipped with the new shield technology were undergoing final testing. Admiral James Harrison watched from the bridge of the EFS, defiant as his fleet maneuvered through complex formations. The ships looked different now, sleeker, with strange crystalline arrays that channeled and stored energy in ways that would have seemed impossible just a year ago. "The Krath won't expect this," his tactical officer commented, reviewing the test results. They'd spent centuries developing bigger weapons, never imagining that someone would find a way to turn their own energy against them. Harrison nodded gravely. "But we can't keep this secret forever. Our colonies are reporting increased Krath activity along the borders. They're preparing for something big." Back on Earth, the Lumini Council convened in their specially designed chamber, their energy forms creating a breathtaking display of light and color. Sarah attended these meetings regularly now, fascinated by how their seemingly simple existence held such profound implications for physics and technology. "We have witnessed something remarkable among your people," the Lumini elder known as Celestia communicated. "Where others saw our peaceful nature as weakness, you saw opportunity. You didn't try to change us into warriors. You found strength in what we already were." Sarah thought about how far they'd come. The sanctions had forced humanity to become more self-sufficient, more innovative. The Lumini's knowledge had accelerated their development in unexpected ways. Clean energy now powered their cities, drawn from the quantum fabric of space itself. Medical breakthroughs inspired by Lumini energy manipulation had revolutionized treatment of previously incurable conditions. "Your species taught us something as well," Aurora added. "We had accepted our role as eternal refugees, believing that peace and power could never coexist. You showed us that protecting others is as noble as protecting oneself." The meeting was interrupted by an urgent communication from Defense Command. Sarah's heart raced as she read the message. Krath warships had been detected moving toward Earth's outer colonies in unprecedented numbers. "They've realized they can't wait us out." Harrison's voice came through the comm. "Our innovations are proceeding too quickly. They'll try to crush us before we can implement these technologies across all our territories." President Rodriguez called an emergency session of the Global Defense Council. Representatives from every nation gathered to face the coming crisis. The Lumini elders attended as well, their presence a reminder of why Earth had chosen this path. "We knew this day would come," Rodriguez addressed the assembly. "The Krath Empire believes that might makes right, that those who choose peace deserve subjugation. Today we prove them wrong. Today we show the galaxy that knowledge, understanding, and cooperation can create a power greater than any fleet of warships." Sarah returned to her lab, working through the night with her team to prepare for the coming conflict. The Lumini worked alongside them, their combined efforts pushing the boundaries of what was possible. They had taken the Lumini's profound understanding of the universe's fundamental forces and turned it into a shield that could protect billions. "Do you ever regret coming to us?" Sarah asked Aurora during a brief break. "Your presence has brought us to the brink of war." Aurora's form shimmered thoughtfully. "We brought you knowledge, Dr. Chen. What you chose to do with it, to use it for protection rather than destruction, that was your decision. Perhaps that is why our species were destined to meet. You understand that true power lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the wisdom to know when not to." As the Krath fleet approached, humanity prepared for its greatest test. Their colonies activated their new defensive systems, their ships moved into position, and the Lumini stood ready to assist with their deep understanding of energy manipulation. They had chosen a different path than the one the galaxy expected, and now they would prove that knowledge truly was power, not through destruction, but through the ability to render aggression futile. The battle for Haven. The Krath attack began at dawn. 1,000 warships dropped out of hyperspace above Haven, Earth's largest colony world. Their angular hulls bristled with weapons, a display of overwhelming force meant to crush any hope of resistance. High Commander Vex stood on his flagship's bridge, watching with satisfaction as his fleet moved into attack formation. "The humans have sealed their fate by harboring the Lumini," he announced to his officers. "Today we demonstrate the price of defying the natural order. Begin the bombardment." Energy weapons powerful enough to crack continents lashed out at the seemingly defenseless planet below. But instead of the expected devastation, something extraordinary happened. The attack simply disappeared into a shimmering barrier that encompassed the entire colony. On the surface, Dr. Sarah Chen monitored the shield network from Haven's defense center. Around her, humans and Lumini worked in perfect synchronization, their combined knowledge being put to its ultimate test. Shield absorption rate at 100%, Aurora reported, their energy form pulsing with concentration. "The Krath's attacks are actually strengthening our defenses, exactly as designed." Admiral Harrison's voice came through the comm system. "All ships, execute Operation Lightbringer. Show them what we've learned from our friends." The Earth Defense Fleet emerged from behind Haven's largest moon, their ships transformed by a year of collaboration with the Lumini. Gone were the bulky weapons platforms and massive engines. Instead, crystalline arrays channeled and redirected energy in ways the Krath had never seen. "Impossible," Vex snarled as his sensors registered the approach. "Their ships are barely armed. This is suicide." But as the Earth ships engaged, it became clear that conventional weapons meant nothing in this battle. The humans had learned from the Lumini's natural ability to manipulate energy. Every Krath attack was absorbed, channeled, and redirected, turning the attacker's own power against them. "Their shields are failing," Lieutenant Rodriguez reported with quiet satisfaction. "They can't maintain this level of fire without burning out their own systems." Sarah watched the tactical displays, remembering all the nights spent working with the Lumini, combining their theoretical knowledge with human practical engineering. They had created something entirely new, defense systems that grew stronger under attack, ships that turned aggression into protection. In orbit, the battle continued to defy Krath military doctrine. Their mighty warships found themselves helpless, their energy weapons worse than useless against the human Lumini hybrid technology. When they switched to physical projectiles, the defense grid simply created gravitational fields that curved the attacks away from their targets. "This is not warfare." Vex raged across the command channel. "You fight without honor, without strength." "No," Admiral Harrison responded calmly. "We fight with understanding. The Lumini spent millennia studying the fundamental forces of the universe. Did you really think that knowledge would be less powerful in your weapons?" The tide turned definitively when the Earth fleet began using the stored energy from Krath attacks to power their own defensive systems. The more the Krath fought, the stronger humanity's protection became. Ships that had survived centuries of conventional warfare found themselves effectively neutralized without a single shot fired in return. On Haven's surface, the Lumini gathered in their crystalline chambers, their combined consciousness helping to maintain the planet's defensive field. They had never wanted to participate in warfare, but this was different. They were protecting, not destroying, using knowledge to preserve life, not take it. High Commander, one of Vex's officers reported, "We've lost 30% of our weapon systems to burnout. The humans aren't even attacking. They're just letting us exhaust ourselves against their defenses." Vex stared at the tactical display in disbelief. His mighty fleet was being defeated not by superior firepower, but by its own inability to harm the enemy. Everything he had believed about strength and power was being turned on its head. In the defense center, Sarah received an urgent message from the Lumini elders. "We're detecting a quantum instability in the craft fleet's drive systems," Aurora communicated. "Their desperate attacks are destabilizing their own power cores." Harrison's voice crackled through the comm. "All ships, pull back to safe distance. Let's show them that humanity remembers mercy, even in victory." "This is Admiral Harrison to the craft fleet," he broadcast on all frequencies. "Your drive systems are approaching critical failure. Stand down, and we'll help you make repairs. Continue attacking, and you'll destroy yourselves." The silence that followed seemed to stretch forever. Sarah held her breath, watching the energy readings from the craft ships spike dangerously. Finally, a new voice came through, not Vex, but one of his subordinates. "This is Acting Commander Trell of the Craft Expeditionary Force. We request assistance with our drive systems." The battle ended not with a triumphant barrage of weapons, but with human and Lumini engineers helping to stabilize craft ships. It was a victory that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of power and strength. Sarah found Aurora observing the aftermath from the defense center's viewport. "Your people taught us that knowledge could be a shield," she said quietly. "We just helped prove it could be stronger than any weapon. And your people taught us that standing firm in one's principles isn't weakness," Aurora responded. "Together, we have shown the galaxy a new kind of strength." As the sun set over Haven, the combined fleet hung in orbit, human ships alongside the now powerless craft vessels. They had achieved what the Lumini alone could not, what humanity alone might never have discovered. They had found a way to defeat aggression without becoming aggressors themselves. The Battle of Haven would be remembered not for its destruction, but for its revelation, that the power to protect could triumph over the power to destroy. The galaxy would never be the same. A new dawn. The Galactic Council chamber felt different this time. Ambassador Elena Santos noticed it immediately as she entered. Gone was the hostility, replaced by a peculiar mixture of respect and uncertainty. News of the Battle of Haven had spread across the galaxy, and with it, centuries of assumptions about power and strength had been shaken to their core. High Counselor Vex was notably absent, replaced by Acting Commander Trell, who now represented a drastically changed Krath Empire. The defeat at Haven had triggered a political earthquake within their hierarchy, as younger, more progressive voices finally found the courage to challenge their society's militant traditions. "The Council recognizes Earth's delegation," announced the Chief Arbiter, their crystalline form reflecting the chamber's lights. "You stand before us not as accused, but as teachers. The events at Haven have challenged our understanding of power." Elena approached the podium, accompanied by Dr. Sarah Chen and Aurora, the Lumini representative. Their presence together, human, Lumini, and their revolutionary technology, represented everything the galaxy had failed to imagine possible. A year ago, this council imposed sanctions on Earth for protecting the Lumini. Elena began. "You called them weak because they chose knowledge over weapons. You called us primitive for seeing value in their peaceful ways. Today, we stand before you having proved that the greatest power isn't the ability to destroy, but the wisdom to find another way." The chamber erupted in discussion. Representatives from dozens of species rose to speak, many of whom had supported the sanctions against Earth. But their tone had changed dramatically. The defensive technologies demonstrated at Haven, the scientarch of the Tescan Confederation observed, they represent an entirely new paradigm. You didn't just defend yourselves. You rendered aggression itself obsolete. Sarah stepped forward, gesturing to Aurora. We succeeded because we looked beyond traditional concepts of strength. The Lumini's deep understanding of universal forces, combined with human innovation, created something that couldn't have existed if either of us had chosen the path of warfare. But what of protection? Demanded a representative from the militant hegemony. How can peace be maintained without the threat of force? Aurora's form pulsed gently as they responded, their thoughts reaching every mind in the chamber. The Battle of Haven proved that protection doesn't require destruction. The more aggressive the attack, the stronger our defenses became. We turned the energy of violence back upon itself, not in retaliation, but in the service of peace. Trell rose from the craft delegation's seat. His once proud military uniform had been modified, the symbols of warfare replaced with markers of diplomatic service. My people have long believed that strength came from the ability to overwhelm our opponents. At Haven, we found ourselves overwhelmed by our own power, turned back upon us not in vengeance, but with an offer of mercy. The chief arbiter raised their appendages for silence. We face a turning point in galactic history. The sanctions against Earth are hereby lifted. Furthermore, we propose the establishment of a new Galactic Science Council, where the Lumini's knowledge can be shared with all species who choose to pursue advancement through understanding rather than force. Belina felt tears in her eyes as she watched the vote. One by one, representatives who had once condemned Earth now stood in support. Even former hardline militarist states recognized that the galaxy had changed. The power demonstrated at Haven couldn't be countered with bigger weapons or stronger ships. It could only be matched by embracing a new way of thinking. In the months that followed, the changes spread rapidly across the galaxy. The Lumini emerged from hiding, their knowledge and wisdom finally recognized as the treasure it had always been. Earth became a center of learning, where species that had once fought each other now worked together to understand the universe's deeper mysteries. Sarah found herself directing the new Galactic Science Academy, established in Haven City as a symbol of the transformation. The facility's architecture reflected its mission, a harmonious blend of human innovation and Lumini energy patterns, where the boundaries between technology and natural law blurred into something entirely new. We've had another dozen applications for research partnerships, she told Aurora as they watched students from across the galaxy arrive for the new term. Species that were bitter enemies a year ago are now collaborating on projects to adapt our defensive systems for environmental protection and disaster prevention. Aurora's energy form shimmered with satisfaction. When we first fled to Earth, we hoped only for sanctuary. Instead, we found partners who helped us transform the very meaning of strength. Your people taught the galaxy that compassion isn't weakness. It's the foundation of true power. The Krath Empire underwent its own revolution, led by those who had witnessed the Battle of Haven firsthand. Their vast military-industrial complex was gradually repurposed, turning factories that once produced weapons into centers for developing protection and preservation technologies. Trell himself became a leading advocate for this transformation, often citing how humanity's mercy and victory had taught him more about strength than centuries of martial tradition. On the anniversary of the Battle of Haven, representatives from across the galaxy gathered to commemorate not just a military turning point, but a philosophical one. The ceremony was held in orbit, where Earth and Lumini ships now patrolled together, their advanced defensive systems a constant reminder that protection was stronger than aggression. Elena stood at the podium one final time, looking out at the assembled delegates. A year ago, we faced a choice between expediency and principle. We chose to stand with the Lumini not because it was easy, but because it was right. In doing so, we didn't just save one species, we helped the galaxy remember something it had forgotten. that true civilization is measured not by its capacity for destruction, but by its commitment to preservation and understanding. As she finished speaking, the Lumini created a spectacular display, their energy forms dancing among the stars. Human ships activated their hybrid defensive systems in harmony, turning the space above Haven into a symphony of light and power. It was a demonstration not of military might, but of the infinite possibilities that awaited a galaxy finally ready to choose knowledge over force, protection over destruction, and wisdom over war. The story of humanity and the Lumini became a legend, told in learning centers across the galaxy. It served as a reminder that sometimes the greatest revolutions come not from overthrowing the old order, but from imagining an entirely new one. In choosing to protect a forgotten race, humanity had helped forge a new dawn for all species, one where strength was measured by the power to preserve, create, and understand.